Alrighty, so today we have a very special guest with us. You might have heard of him. It's Jim Wofford, a three-time Olympian who has spent his life with horses and is one of the best-known eventing trainers in the world today. In 2000, Jim was listed in the Chronic of the Horse as one of the 50 most influential horsemen in the 20th century. And in 2012, he was awarded the Jimmy A. Williams Trophy for Lifetime Achievements, Horse Sports Outstanding Service Awards, and its highest honor. He is also a Hall of Fame member of both the United States Eventing Association and the Culver Military Academy. Jim trains at his farm in Upperville, Virginia, and travels extensively teaching and giving clinics. In addition to these achievements, he was an active competitor in steeplechase racing, rode in numerous horse shows, and fox hunted for over 30 years. And I could go on and on of how you truly have made an amazing impact in the horse industry. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real honor, Jim.
Thank you, Kelly.
Awesome. So just on our topic, we're saying of just keeping your animal athlete first and the sport second. I just wanted to get your feedback and just hear what you have to say about some of the items we have. One question I had for you was, it's kind of a big one. So if you had what is the most important contributing factor behind a successful competition circuit for your animals? Like the number one thing for your animals, which you consider the most important contributing factor. What would you say?
What's the most important? Have a good horse.
Have a good horse.
Have a really good horse. And then keep that really good horse sound and produce him in peak condition occasionally.
Okay.
I think that's a big mistake competitors make these days. There are more opportunities, and because they have more opportunities, they want to run that successful horse more often because they can be successful until they're no longer successful. And I think a great deal of that is due to the wear and tear on the horse, the competitive stresses.
Yeah. So, just on that too, I see what you're saying, just starting off with having a great horse, just starting out with that. How would you keep the longevity of that horse, would you say?
I think to back up a little bit, my discipline is eventing, and that requires a very, very fit horse. These are the fittest of all of the Olympic discipline horses. And I only really ever had one good horse at a time.
I see.
And I realized very quickly that if I had a good horse, I was somebody. And if I didn't have a good horse, I was nobody. So I spent a lot of time thinking about how to keep that one good horse sound and to produce him fit and ready to be competitive at the right time. I did not worry too much about being competitive all of the time because I had other goals with him. Most of my competitions were I viewed them as a stepping stone to another competition.
I see. Okay. Well, yeah, that makes sense then. Okay. So I was just thinking about, like you were saying, like for longevity and just keeping them sound. If you were on a budget and the listeners here, we're just trying to give them ideas on what would you really invest in if you had to just invest in certain things to help your horse do the best they can. And it sounds like soundness, you said, was one of the things, but how would you go about taking care of your horse
in a funny sort of way, I would say there are two things that I would really want in a facility, and that would be good footing and safe turnout.
Safe turnout.
That I like for horses. My horses went out 12 hours a day. They either went out at night during the summer because of the bugs here in Virginia, or they went out during the day during cold weather. But unless it was absolutely horrible blizzard or a monsoon summer rainstorm with lightning, thunderstorm, they stayed out. And if there's a little bit of rain, well, they would drip dry when they came back in the stall. But that relaxed them, it made them happy. And then when they worked, I didn't have to work them so hard to get them to settle in, because if you have to work them hard on footing that's not optimal, you're starting to build trouble into your competition schedule. You might not know it yet, but it's coming.
In there. Okay. So when you say a safe turnout, you're just saying like weather-wise, or would you recommend like certain how many
Well,
horses?
I mean, good, acceptable footing. It doesn't have to be wonderful footing. Hopefully grass, but definitely a safe enclosure that they can't do a Houdini on you
I
and go galloping down the highway.
of course. Okay, I see what you're saying on that. Okay, really cool. So also, I mean, because you're saying how you have great horses that help you out. It's about finding a great horse. How would you build a relationship with your horse? It's you know, itself is great, but how can you build that trust with that horse? Would you say?
Well, I think to build trust in a horse, you set very simple tasks that are very easy for the horse, even though you might not know it. And then the advice I give to people when they get a new horse is, look, don't give him a good ride. Don't give him a bad ride. Don't ride. Just canter toward the obstacle and see what he does. And even over a low jump, he will start to reveal himself to you very quickly. That even without any urging from you, he'll start to accelerate toward the jump. Well, we have skills and drills that we can deal with that. He might slow down slightly to observe what we've put in his path. That's okay. We can deal with that. But you already are starting to learn a little bit more about the horse. And he builds confidence in you because the task you have set for him is easy and he can comply with it without undue worry or stress. And then you see my pattern. Then the tasks become increasingly difficult during the lesson and during the training periods, the days, weeks, and months leading up to a destination event.
Okay, okay. And what would you say to help build confidence in a horse? Say it's a new horse and they have all the skills to do the job, but they just need more confidence to be built up. How would you recommend going about that?
Well, I would know something about the horse before we started with him. He could be an unstarted 3-year-old,
Hmm.
and that tells me all I need to know.
Okay.
Or he could have been competing at a certain level with someone else. That again, that tells me something about his educational background. And I will always start below that. I mean, the unstarted 3-year-old or unjumped 3-year-old, I'm going to lead him over one rustic rail on the ground because every horse in the world will do that successfully.
I
If they don't do that, you probably don't want him anyway.
okay. To help build a relationship though. So I see
Yes.
what you're saying, yes. And I've actually read your book too, the one for 3 day starting your 3 day eventing horse.
Yes.
And starting out like you how to pick your horse and like the gait, and you want to make sure that they have a good like rhythm to them too. It's they're not changing their rhythm too much and things like that. Is that just all innate, or is there any way of helping that?
It helps if they are born like that, but that can be trained into the horse,
Okay.
especially excitable thoroughbred types. They tend to boil over when they're jumping,
Yeah.
and you have to develop routines and exercises that train them to maintain the rhythm.
Mhm.
Coaches talk about rhythm a lot, but they never, I don't think that they rarely get to the bedrock. Why do you want your horse to keep his rhythm? Because when you hear the rhythm, you hear his balance.
I see.
When he's balanced, he's going to perform to the best of his ability. We can't turn a horse that can only jump 4 feet into a 6-foot jumper.
Okay.
He does not have the talent. I can't run the 100-yard dash. You have to use a sundial to time me. I don't have much foot speed, right? So there are certain things I could probably improve my time, but I'm never going to run a 10-second 100-yard dash. Not going to happen. So we want to maximize the horse's abilities, and that means we want to teach him to keep his balance to the greatest extent possible, as much of the time as possible, because then he'll give you his best performance if he's mentally and physically balanced. They come together a lot of the time. If your horse is excited, you might be able to keep him balanced at home, but he's going to be difficult at a competition.
I see. I see. And you say a mentally balanced too. So of course, a younger animal will be well, it depends actually, but just to be balanced, seeing all the other activities around them? How do you keep them focused on the job? Like, how would you recommend keeping them in their routine? I guess I'm just saying from like a new horse or a younger horse. How do you get them to get into the work mode to start at, utilizing their talents?
Well, I think that has to do a little bit with your competitive. I don't want to call it a competitive schedule. Let's call it your training schedule. That what you do every day. And the thing about my discipline is we have 3 separate sports that we have to train for: the dressage, the cross country, the show jumping. But we also have a 4th aspect to it, and that's the conditioning. And I dealt with that by doing something different every day. And that horses that are suitable for eventing, and notice how I say that, because they're not all suitable for eventing, they enjoy the variety. They get up every morning and their attitude is, oh boy, I can't wait till he shows up to see what we do today. What is that idiot going to try and teach me to do? There are some horses, usually a colder blooded horse, they thrive on routine. They want to go in a level arena with a fence around it and jump 8 jumps in a row and get a pat and walk out, and the groom hands them a sugar cube, and they love that. They're probably not mentally suited to be an eventer, even though they might have the physical attributes.
Okay.
But the mental, but Bonaparte said the moral is to the physical as 3 to 1. It's much more important that their mind is right than that their body skills are right. I think there's something to that with horses.
Yeah, okay, interesting. So you're saying as long as they're mentally set, their physical attributes will come into play.
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah.
I talk about the dressage training scale now, the steps that they recommend, but I was raised on calm, forward, straight.
Okay.
You made your horse calm first, then you taught him to go forward, meaning to respond from your leg. And that could be your 1 leg or it could be 2 legs. And that gets pretty sophisticated as you go along. And then because you can control the horse with your legs, now you can make him straight. And by straight, they also meant straight, accepting the contact equally in both reins, so forth and so on. But my mantra is very, very simple: calm, forward, straight. If your horse is not calm, you're going to teach him the wrong lesson.
Okay.
The more thoroughbred he is, the more true that is.
I see. And when you say for calmness, how would you recommend, like in your starting your routines and getting them into that mindset? How would you start a horse that's highly reactive and, getting him to be calm? How would you recommend going about that?
Well, they vary. I would say that it's rare that I have an eventer that's too calm.
Okay.
They do exist, but usually they're hyperactive children. Okay. And they need a lot of tasks to keep them focused. I see. And then they're in their milieu. Then that's what they need. I think that I want to go back for a second. Remember, I talked about turnout. If you have a horse that's a hyperactive child, turnout is one of the best things you can do. The next is that if you've turned him out for quite a long period of time every day and he still comes out agitated and anxious and so on, you can walk him first. My horses spend more time at the walk than any other pace because it's the lowest impact. Remember, I'm always worried. I only ever had 1 horse and I was worried about his soundness. Right. So I would walk him into shape. People forget that the walk is the gallop in slow motion. The walk is 4 beats, the gallop is 4 beats. So you're working the same muscle pairs, but you don't have the impact, you don't have the speed, you don't have the excitement. But you're developing the muscles as you go with it. So I would make that point to people first. Next, I notice a lot of, especially dressage trainers, they come out and they pick up the reins and they ask the horse to go to work. I tend to hack my horses on a loose rein. If they're too agitated and hyperactive, I'll trot them around on a long rein. And
Okay.
I tell my students I want them on as long a rein as possible. It might not be very possible. You might have to stay in touch with them, but you're always trying to get them to go like a hunter hack. You're trying to get them to go like a Western pleasure first.
I see.
Then once they are calm, remember, now we can start to go forward. Forward meaning from both legs, forward meaning to respond to one leg. That's where the real training of the horse on the flat comes in, when you start training them from one leg to the opposite rein. But it goes back as I approach that part in my training program, the horse is calm as we come forward to that. Then you talked about building a relationship. I will always start with something the horse knows how to do.
Okay.
Okay, very, very simple exercise. It might be as simple as a turn on the forehand. Halt, turn on the forehand, the hips move away from the wall, but he responded to one active leg by displacing his quarters. He completes the exercise, I pat him, and we go on about our business, and he's a winner
I see.
because he did the right thing and he got rewarded for it. And now you do that for 3 or 4 years every day, and you'll develop a pretty good partnership with your horse.
I see. I see. And would you say, I mean, of course, for eventing, I mean, there, I imagine there's a limit in the age of a horse that would be performing at that peak level. But is there an age that you would say is where it's just it's just too hard on them? Like you're giving them all their supplements, the glucosamine and everything like that. And is there an age where you think that it's in general, like they're just not suitable for their sport anymore and should be retired, or it just depends on individual cases?
No, there's not an individual age, or I should say, there's not a specific age. There certainly is an individual age.
Okay.
And that horse will tell you by his actions. And you just have to listen to that. I would make the point that our international horses that we see in the Olympics, we see in the World Championships, the average age has been increasing almost a year every 4 years. And I put that down to an emphasis on better footing, because all of this is not breaking news to upper level competitors that they need good footing. They'll withdraw if they get to a competition and the footing is not suitable. They will not compete. They
Yeah.
might do the dressage because that will be on an all-weather surface. They might do the show jumping because that's usually on an all-weather surface, but they won't go out and gallop on bad footing because they've learned the hard way. So there is that. I also think that increased veterinary measures have had a lot to do with these joint injections, the glucosamines, all of those, Adequan, Legend. We see much more of that than we used to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so too. I see that in the field too. So, so glucosamine as well. Do you recommend any other kind of like from a doctor's perspective too, like chiropractic work over any other?
I don't have any product endorsements. I stay away from them. I don't solicit them. You have to admit, when I was growing up and first started training, giving your horse aspirin was cutting edge.
Yeah.
We had nothing except rest, and we were starting to experiment with poulticing as a drawing agent, and that was cutting edge therapy for your horse.
Yeah.
And I would spend the summers on my older horses with a paperback book, sitting on the bareback in a creek with running water.
I see. Yeah.
And that was their world boot.
Yeah.
And so with 2 or 3 horses, that was your afternoon right there, down there swatting flies and lying backwards on the horse's croup reading a book.
Right.
So yes, I'm fairly cognizant of all of the things that people use now. A lot of them, I tell people, yes, go ahead and give them that. It will make you feel better.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I think there's a placebo effect attached to a lot of these things.
Yeah. Okay. And that's very fair to say. So, and that actually makes a huge difference though, just mentality too. You're just, hey, I think I did my best, and it's in your head. So I hear what you're saying on that too. So for someone on a budget though, was there anything that you do, like a supplement or anything like that? I don't want to, you don't have to say a brand name or anything, but I just meant, like, is there anything that in general, like, you have all your horses on something because you just know it's been a benefit to your horses?
Well, before I went to that, I would rather spend it on good quality hay and good quality feeds.
Okay.
If I'm on a budget, that I would look at that. One of the cheapest things you can do is hire the best blacksmith you can find, even if he is more expensive than the general. There's usually a reason that he can charge more because he's just flat better.
Yeah.
And that the quickest way to make a sound horse lame is bad shoeing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would go with that. But then, you know, then you have to start to tell me, well, Jim, my horse is a 16-year-old thoroughbred. He raced for 5 years. Then he did this and that, did that. Well, then I'm going to start talking about joint injections, all of these joint supplements, uh, the various injectables that people use now to help improve arthritic conditions. That would be my next step.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah. For
but
sure.
I'm not very big about that. I don't think about chemicals
Yeah.
when I deal with problems first. I mean, I do. I'm
I
not
appreciate
I'm
that.
not totally ignorant about that
No.
part of the horse world, but
No, I was just curious to hear if you used anything like that. So that's actually great, more natural and just sing sound. I think it shows true. So I think that, and clearly it works for you. So it's great tips on that too. So yeah, I'm just trying to think here. Is there anything that we haven't touched that you'd like to share with people, that just keeping your animal athlete first and the sport second, that you can think of?
well, I think that in a funny sort of way, concentrating on the things you and I have been talking about, Kelly, that's the most competitive thing you can do because it helps to ensure that you will have a horse on the important day that is there ready to compete because you've dedicated all of your efforts to that. I'm a big admirer of uh, uh, our modern competitors in my discipline, but I do think a lot of them make the mistake of expecting the horse to match their work ethic
Mhm.
because these people's work ethic is just phenomenal. They think nothing of riding 10 or 12 horses a day, every day, that they'll compete on 6 or 8 horses over the weekend, and Monday morning they're back in the saddle again. But they tend to carry that over to each horse, and horses tolerate their workload differently.
Mhm.
And I think we have to be sensitive to that. We have to be willing to allow the horse to have a sick day.
I see.
The coach that pointed this out to me, Lars Sitterholm, he said, Jimmy, twice a year you wake up and you turn off the alarm clock and you start to get up and you lie back down and say, I can't do it. And you go back to sleep and you sleep all day. And then you get up and you have dinner and you sleep all night and you wake up and you feel great the next day. And your horse, every now and then your horse does the same thing for you. And you have to feel that. That's not a schedule thing. That's a thing where you break the schedule.
I see.
You use the schedule to guide your training, but the schedule doesn't tell you what to do,
Okay.
right? Your horse tells you what to do.
Right. And I think that's a great tip too. So you don't know until it just
Every day. Every day.
feel it. That's wonderful. So I think we touched a lot of things here. I would say about footing, good turnout as well, finding a good farrier, a blacksmith, talking to your vet for any kind of soundness for joints if they need it, depending on the age, individual cases, and things like that. Um, is there anything else that you can think of that you'd like to share?
No, I think we've had a lovely talk here. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for your time and just spending your day with us, just talking about these tips. So, all right. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them our way. And we appreciate your time. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.